The biggest breakthrough in the recent India-US relations, showing how friendship can cut through even the thickest ice. After a late-night phone call with Prime Minister Narendra Modi, US President Donald Trump has announced that India and the US have agreed to a trade deal. The US will cut the existing tariff from 50% currently to 18%. Trump said he lowered the reciprocal tariff after discussions with Prime Minister Modi, calling it a gesture of friendship and respect. The 50% tariff has now been reduced to 18%. The deal comes after several months of intense negotiations during which the Trump administration imposed a steep 50% tariff on Indian exports to the US. Notably, 25% of these tariffs targeted India's crude oil trade with Russia, which the US claimed was indirectly financing Russia's war against Ukraine. President Trump described Prime Minister Modi as one of his closest friends and a powerful, respected leader of India. He highlighted that their discussions covered a range of issues, including trade and efforts, and the end to the war between Russia and Ukraine. So, out of friendship and mutual respect, Trump said that they reached a breakthrough trade deal. He emphasized that he and Prime Minister Modi are go-getters, doers, leaders who get things done. And in response, Prime Minister Modi expressed his delight that made-in-India products will now face a reduced 18% tariff in the US, extending heartfelt thanks to President Trump for the significant announcement. This comes after months of negotiations taking place between the two leaders, between India as well as the United States. Remember, multiple rounds of trade talks have been going on, and we also saw the bonhomie on ice. Let's break down the details for you. Let's introduce guests joining us on the broadcast. Tushar Gupta, political analyst, joining us on the broadcast. Sierra Claire, foreign policy analyst, also on the broadcast with us. Also with me are Rishabh and Niyamika, my colleagues, to get us further details. And I'll begin with you, Tushar Gupta. This is going on for several months now. How big of a deal is it? And, you know, there were some red lines as well for India. What are the key takeaways and how significant is this India-US deal?
Well, it's a very significant deal, and we are all awaiting the fine print of the deal. One can be sure that farm and the agriculture sector, the dairy sector, would not be a part of the deal because that was a condition with the FTA also. But look at the way things have moved. The bone of contention was the Russian oil. And Pratibha, I'll be very honest with you. I think there is a Russia-Ukraine deal also on the horizon. I think the world is going back to a pre-22 status quo when it comes to oil exports and imports, when it comes to countries' share. I think that is the reason Indians are now cutting down their Russian oil imports, and the Russians are also expecting the European market to open up for them again. Also, we have to understand that in 2022, when we started importing Russian oil, the kind of difference between the Russian crude and the Brent crude from the rest of the world, the difference was huge. The discount was huge, and therefore it made economic sense for us to import. And now the difference is quite reduced. So in a way, we are not getting very huge discounted crude, and, you know, we are getting the crude at almost the same price from the rest of the world. So we are not losing on the Russian oil front. I'm telling this because the opposition is going to make an issue out of it today. Number three, Trump was threatening us with 50% tariffs. We are back to 18%. That makes a huge, progressive dent for our exports to the United States. A lot of MSMEs would be happy. And once the fine print is in, we'll know what other products are also included. Point number 4, Trump said that we are going to buy $500 billion worth of goods. Now, we don't know the timeline. That has not been specified yet. We don't know if it's an absolute number or it's an implied number. It's a number with a cascading effect. So all those details would come in later today. But the important thing here is people thought that the relations between India and America are at a historic low. Okay. But I think they're back on track. I think there's a deal that is going to be worked out. We'll get the fine print of it very soon. And I think, like the European FTA, the US trade deal will also be a huge success.
Okay, all right. So it could happen in weeks. There could also be a meeting between the two leaders that has been hinted already. And Ms. Claire, how is the United States looking at this deal? They're the biggest trading partner of India, but this deal has been in the works for several months now.
Yes, exactly. Well, I mean, I think that a lot of people in the United States are so excited to see this deal go through finally. I know that the president has been working on it and it's been a priority for him. And, you know, I think everyone watching on is seeing that, as you pointed out earlier, the U.S. and India partnership is not what people portrayed in the media. It's continuing on and it's growing. And it's showing that these two countries, when they work together, you know, it might even lead to helping peace come between Ukraine and Russia. So really a lot of just showing the potential of the U.S.-India relationship.
Okay, all right. I want to bring in my colleague Rishabh here as well. And Rishabh, you know, over the last few months, there have been ups and downs in the India-US relations, and it really looked like the bonhomie between the Prime Minister and the US President was also on ice on India-US relations as well, because there have been multiple claims that were made, including on India-Pakistan. Is that all under the bridge? What seems to have changed?
Well, see, there are three things here that we need to understand that has changed in last 3 to 4 weeks from here on. First, India-EU trade deal that did work as a catalyst. And, you know, one might say things, but India's diversification of markets and the way India went to UAE, Oman, EU, New Zealand, East Asia, Africa, that helped India ensure that US comes on table to negotiate. You know, there were multiple leaks in last 1 week in various US networks that how it was Donald Trump and JD Vance and Marco Rubio who were stalling India-US trade deal for something or other. There are many such instances that we know of. For example, there was one call that happened last July where our Commerce Minister Piyush Goyal was speaking to his counterpart Latek on a secured line, and there was arguments going on over what India could agree to and what India will not agree to when it comes to trade deal, and a red line was being clearly put forward by India. Suddenly, in that very call, on that very secured line, we know that both sides, who's and who were listening to that call, Donald Trump appears and says that if India is not giving me this deal is off table, and that's where the talks went into cold storage. From there on, India-US back channel talks continued, is what we are given to understand, but India's diplomatic maturity has actually helped India secure this deal, is what we're given to understand.
Okay.
18% is a substantial decrease in the 50% whooping tariff that we had on us. From here on, you know, Sergio Gore, while speaking to our group editor-in-chief, Navika Kumar, very categorically said that 18% is the only tariff on Indian goods. India has, in a way, also lowered the tariff barriers to 0%. So the import and export will increase between the two sides. Now, the major concern right now is that Donald Trump says that India has agreed to stop Russian oil import. Indian Prime Minister's tweet did not mention that. So the fine prints are yet to come in. We'll have to see how things unfold from here. But especially this 18% announcement is definitely a boost in India-US relationship. Now the fine prints will give us more details out how things will unfold from here.
All right, we're awaiting more details and also political reactions. Interestingly, those who latched on to the claim of dead economy when the US president said so, what will they say now? We're going to be talking about that. Before that, the conversation that you mentioned as well, Rishabh, to get us more details on that, the exclusive conversation with Group Editor-in-Chief Navika Kumar. The US Ambassador to India, Sergio Gore, congratulated both Prime Minister Modi and President Trump on the historic trade agreement. He expressed optimism about the future of India-US relations and confirmed that both leaders are expected to meet soon.
The question on everybody's mind is what happens to the penalty tariff. Would you have details of some of those announcements, and when can we expect the details of the trade deal to be put out?
Hi, Navika. Good to hear from you tonight. The final number will be 18. And so the final number all in, once, you know, there's a few things that will happen over the next few days, but overall, the final number will be 18. The bottom line is the secondary tariffs that were the 25% applied based on purchases of Russian oil. It's a reason the president applied those across multiple nations. And the reason being is because we want to bring peace to Ukraine and Russia. And so that is something the Prime Minister agrees with. The Prime Minister cares about peace also. And so overall, we have seen a reduction in oil by India, which is a great thing. It's nothing personal, but it's one of those things we do not believe that we should be funding wars. So overall, the number will be 18.
I also want to ask you, there was a conversation between President Trump and Prime Minister Modi this evening. Can you give us a few more details of the contours of that conversation?
Yes, look, it was a very warm conversation. It lasted, I would say, close to half an hour. It's when two friends catch up, it's very easy to talk to each other. And the relationship between the two leaders is very warm. They consider each other friends. The Prime Minister once again invited him to visit India. The President recalled his warm memories of the events both in India during his last visit and the Prime Minister's trip to the United States when they organized the Howdy Modi rally. And so it's a very warm relationship. It was a call between two great friends.
Many questions still remain on the details of the Venezuelan oil deal that was referred to by President Trump. Could you shed some light on what this oil deal could be about, and whether this is different from the Indian companies already working in Venezuela?
I'm not going to get into those details because some of those things will still get worked out over the next few days, and I'll leave that to the trade negotiators that are handling that, and also those that are involved in the sale of oil across the world. The only thing that I would say tonight is a big congratulations to both countries. This is a big win. This opens a new chapter between our two nations, and we're thrilled by that. The president is very happy with that. The prime minister is very happy with that, and so it's a good night to celebrate. So I appreciate you having me on tonight.
Just before I let you go, the question also on everybody's mind is, would there be a meeting between President Trump and Prime Minister Modi finally concluding the trade deal and making the big announcement together?
The trade deal is already done. So over the next few days, something will be signed as the final details, are done. And I am sure they will meet soon, as friends do. They like to get together, and it's one of those things. For too long, people said, "Oh, they don't speak to each other, they don't talk to each other." That's just hogwash. I've been there many times with the president, both privately and publicly. He's always considered him a friend over the last year. India is a complex and very large economy. When people try to compare India to smaller nations that have gotten a trade deal faster, India has tens of thousands of items that have been negotiated. So you cannot compare that to a smaller country. To put it in perspective, I'd remind all your viewers that the deal with Europe took almost 19 years. So in the grand scheme of things, this was a very small amount of time. We're thrilled that the two leaders were able to agree. They get all the credit. The tariffs will go down to 18%, and this will open a new chapter between our two nations.
Do you think the EU-India deal, the United States-India deal now puts the world's biggest challenges behind that?
I can't comment on the European deal, but I will just say that we're thrilled by this deal. We've been working on this for a very long time. There have been a lot of individuals behind the scenes that have been trying to get this done. And so tonight is a big night again. It is all because of the leadership of President Trump.